Good morning, afternoon, or night, everyone. Brian Neubert here from goldenblack.com. Live here just randomly for no apparent reason. Here to talk to you a little bit about Purdue basketball. As you are well aware, our content on goldenblack.com includes an automatic video module that we have to fill. And I am hell bent on making sure that it's always relevant content that is going with. I hate the word content, but I can't escape it. It is relevant to go along with the words that are written as part of that post, that article, things like that. So this is filler. This is just something I can include with our basketball coverage until we have more relevant, more aesthetically pleasing videos to include in some of that stuff. So I'm just going to talk here for a couple minutes about the start of Purdue basketball practice and some of the hot buttons. I'm including this in an item that I've got on our site Monday morning, detailing a lot of this stuff. But again, I just wanted some of this in moving picture form. I will cut to the chase here. So Purdue starts practice Monday officially, which just means they can start practicing every day. Of course, as you all know, Purdue and every team in college basketball has been practicing in some form all summer after the NCAA changed that rule a couple years ago. So this is just a ceremonial date on the calendar. It's not really anything relevant like it used to be. Purdue has been practicing since the spring, essentially. They've had very few comings and goings from a personnel perspective, unlike past summers where Ross-Ade was off doing international stuff and going to the NBA draft and things like that. Guys were hurt. Nursing injuries, whatever it might be. Purdue had relative stability personnel-wise this year outside of Will Berg and Camden Heide going on that overseas tour a while back. It's been a pretty stable summer from having everyone on campus together, which is really valuable. So this process of establishing what Purdue is here heading into the November start of the season is really began months ago. So it's really not news, but it is something we kind of recognize as a significant moment in the calendar. So now I'm just going to talk about a lot of the processes that have already been ongoing these last couple months, and now really come to a head as Purdue starts practicing every day. So this is going to be a guard-dominated team. Obviously, Braden Smith and Fletcher Loyer are one of the better backcourts you're going to find in college basketball. It stands to reason to suggest this is a backcourt-driven team, but that is very much accurate. Braden Smith is going to be one of the best point guards in college basketball. Things around him change a little bit. I don't anticipate that being a problem in terms of his productivity or his influence on games, but it does change things a little bit for him. Fletcher Loyer, I think, is going to have a very good year in maybe more of an expanded role, less of a complementary role than it was the last 2 years. I think he's more of a featured guy now. But the most important piece of this puzzle, emphasis on the word puzzle, is Trey Kaufman-Renn. I'm not saying he's Purdue's best player. I'm not saying anything to put him ahead of Braden Smith and Fletcher Loyer on the importance scale. I just think he's kind of the factor in all of this that's going to determine a lot of things for Purdue. Where he plays from a position standpoint is going to determine a lot of how Purdue plays lineups-wise. Getting him in positions to score, I think he's going to be a featured guy, maybe not to the extent Ross-Ade was, but not all that far off. I think he's going to get a lot of touches, and he's going to get a lot of opportunities to score. Offense is going to be built to get him into favorable positions to score, whether that's at the 5, whether that's at the 4, we don't know yet. Purdue doesn't know yet, and that's one of the biggest things that they have to figure out here in September and October, or the rest of September and into October, is whether or not they want to use as their primary lineup. I do think they will use both. So everything I say from here on out is not a binary one or the other type of deal. They will play Trey Kaufman-Renn at center, along with more athletic, smaller people alongside of him, Camden Heide, Miles Colvin, and then whoever else might emerge in that mix. Or they can put him at the 4 next to true size, which would be Will Berg or Daniel Jacobson, unless someone else emerges to disjoint that. Caleb Furst is going to be in that mix, obviously, as well, but I don't characterize him as, true size, because true size at Purdue has a different definition than it does everywhere else. We're talking 7-footers. We're talking gigantic people here. And, Caleb First is more of an inside-outside sort of big man, more of an athletic guy. Anyway, so how Purdue wants to play primarily is one of the things that I think they have to figure out, what puts Trey Kaufman in the best positions. The pros and cons of both lineup configurations are remaining to be seen. One lineup would obviously be more skilled, probably better offensively, quicker, faster, more dynamic. The other would be bigger, more physical, and better on the glass. And that brings us to one of Purdue's great concerns here this offseason, going into this season, is rebounding. Zach-Edey, as I wrote in my column the other day at goldenblack.com, he averaged like 12 rebounds a game, right? But if there was a metric that gauged rebounds caused as opposed to rebounds gotten, I think his number would have been 20 plus, because the space he occupied, the attention he occupied from people, the fouls he drew that weren't called, all of that stuff factored into Purdue's rebounding infrastructure. It made Mason Gillis a better rebounder. It made Braden Smith a better rebounder. It made Trey Kaufman a better rebounder. It made Purdue as a whole a better rebounding team. That influence, that presence is gone, and it can't be replaced. You are a little bit smaller now across the board, provided Will Berg or Daniel Jacobson don't turn into what Zach-Edey was his sophomore year, which you never really think out at Purdue with big men anymore, because it seems to happen every other year. Whenever they need it, it happens. But I would not anticipate either of those guys being double-digit rebound guys by any stretch of the imagination. But they can be presences. Presences? Yes, they can provide a presence. Will Berg is big and physical. That's important. Daniel Jacobson is 7'2" with really long arms, 7'4", whatever they're listing him at. After 7 foot, does it really matter? He can get his hands on rebounds that no one else on the floor probably can. If he just keeps rebounds alive, Purdue's going to end up with its share of those. So whether he can hold up physically against some of the big guys in the Big Ten, that's going to be the challenge for him. But between Jacobson's height and length and Berg's big, strong, physical body, those two guys are going to loom large on the glass. But there is no way around this having to be a team where Camden Heidi's rebounding like his life depends on it. Miles Colvin is rebounding like his life depends on it. Everyone on the floor is blocking out. The guards are going to get the ball, things like that, because you don't have the natural advantages on the glass you've had before. I think that applies to defense too. Rim protection is going to be a big question for Purdue, and that's where Berg and Jacobson are going to have to really, really be able to contribute. They're not going to transform Purdue. They're not going to be Zach-Edey, but they have to at least take that from a total question mark to at least something that can be relatively reliable. If not, I think Purdue's coaches are going to have to do a good job scheming some things in terms of help defense, in terms of finding ways to stop the dribble, maybe being more aggressive against ball screens, whatever it might be. Simple disruption. Purdue's not going to play zone. They did implement some zone-like concepts last year, showing a willingness to at least get a little bit creative and mix things up a little bit, and an open-mindedness that could come in handy this year. You might see different things here and there from a defensive perspective. What those would be, I have no idea yet. I don't know if Purdue knows yet, but there are big questions this fall here. How are the lineups going to work? How is the rebounding and the defense going to take shape? How are the freshmen going to acclimate? Every indication from the summer, Jakari Harris, CJ Cox are ready to play now. Guys who a lot of other years in Purdue history would come in and be starters right away. That is not reality at Purdue right now. Obviously, Braden Smith and Fletcher Loyer have a pretty good chance of earning those starting positions, I would have to say. Those guys may not be needed to play a ton of minutes. You're not going to ask, them to bear all that heavy a burden, but I think both of those guys have really shown well this summer, and that's a big, big deal for Purdue. There's no more disconcerting, uncomfortable situation for college basketball coaches than going into a season having to rely on inexperienced guards and ball handlers. And that is the situation Purdue's in, at least from a backup perspective. But the good news is they can bring those guys along at their pace because Braden Smith and Fletcher Loyer are obviously very, very known commodities. People say known quantity sometime, and I've always thought it was known commodity. I'm going with known commodity. I don't think known quantity makes as much sense. So if I'm wrong on that, you can dislike this on YouTube, or you can go on our message boards and you can rip me. But I've always gone with known commodity. Whether it's right or not, I don't know. It doesn't matter. Either way, whether it's commodity or quantity, Braden Smith and Fletcher Loyer are very much that. So Jakari Harris and C.J. Cox can play important minutes, but they're not going to have to play 30 important minutes. They're going to have to play 10 important minutes, 15 important minutes, barring something unforeseen, obviously. You always want to qualify that kind of stuff. Daniel Jacobson, obviously going to play. Purdue's got a void at center here that Berg, Jacobson, maybe Caleb First, maybe Raleigh Burgess, if he makes a move here this fall, can kind of fill into. So Jacobson's the other freshman who's very, very likely to play. Getting those guys on board, again, that started in June. It's nothing new here. But that's going to be an important key for Purdue. In terms of interesting dynamics here outside of everything I just mentioned, Camden Heide and Miles Coleman, their time is now. They need to be more aggressive. They need to assert themselves. They need to use their athleticism. They need to show experience because they both have it now. Not a ton, but they have it now. Purdue needs Miles Colvin to put the ball in the basket. Purdue needs Camden Heide to be kind of that guy who impacts the games a lot of different ways with his athleticism, things like that. I would give you a comparison, but I don't know if I can think of one at Purdue in recent years who's that athletic and things like that. Athleticism really comes out, in my opinion, when athleticism plays with energy. And I think Camden Heide's energy could really, punctuate his athleticism, and that would be a really good thing for Purdue. Defensively, on the glass, rebounding. You're going to hear that over and over again all season. Stuff like that. Important for those guys to make open shots, to stretch the floor, to run the floor, to really be aggressive in transition. I think, this could be a higher tempo team. Purdue says that every year that they want to run, and they do. But there's also the pragmatic part of it too. When you have Ross-Ade, sometimes you got to wait on him. Although he ran the floor better than any 7'4", 300-pound guy you'll ever see ever. Braden Smith is going to want to push the ball, and Camden Heide and Miles Colvin are going to want to run and fill those wings. And Purdue can be pretty salty that way. Purdue can look a lot of different ways this year. We said that last year too, and I think it was true because the ball screen stuff with Braden Smith and Ross-Ade transformed them. And now that's one of the other questions here. How does Trey Kaufman-Moran and Braden Smith kind of coalesce together in that ball screen action? Kaufman-Moran is obviously very different than Edey. He's going to be more of a short roll guy. He's going to be more of a pick and pop guy, more of a catch and drive sort of guy. But they're going to use that stuff a lot to get him in ideal post position, to get that catch within 5-6 feet of the basket, and then let Trey Kaufman-Moran's 50-year-old savvy. He's the 50-year-old at the health club who kicks everybody's ass. That is what Trey Kaufman-Moran is as a low post scorer. He's got the quote-unquote old man's game. They're going to want to get him into positions and get him into clean post entries, things like that. So from an offensive perspective, that is going to be a big, big deal here this year. And one of the many things we'll be writing about and talking about over and over again. I went 14 minutes with this video. This was supposed to be 5. If you're a frequent consumer of our products at goldandblack.com, I have a little bit of what they call the redundancy disease in terms of being long-winded and just not being able to shut the hell up when it's time to shut the hell up. And once again, I'm off to a great start to the season. Normally I do rap videos after games, and they just get out of control. This is not a rap video. This is a, what we call this, a preview video. But it's just here to fill space. And here I am talking for 20 minutes. Anyway, stay with us at goldandblack.com. If you have not joined us yet. Now would be a great time to do so. We got the rest of the football season to go. Basketball coverage is really going to ramp up. I feel like I have a pretty good beat on this team already. So I'm happy to impart my wisdom. Ask us questions on the message boards. Ask us questions in our chat sessions on Wednesdays. And just read our stuff. I think you will not be disappointed if you're really into this stuff. Also, if you're watching this on YouTube, like, subscribe, leave a comment. If it's productive, if it's unproductive, take it to Facebook, take it to Twitter, take it to Reddit, whatever other platforms you might have, take it there. Stay tuned to our podcasts all season long, Gold and Black Radio on your favorite podcast platforms, and so on and so forth. Keep our sponsors in mind. The Purdue Union Club Hotel is one of our big sponsors. But we also have the Whitaker Inn, East End Grill and Ripple and Company, Purdue Federal Credit Union. I haven't gotten the full list for the season yet, so apologies to anyone I might have left off there. But please support our other platforms as well. But be sure to stay tuned to goldandblack.com all season long. If you're seeing this video, chances are you're already on the website. I urge you to stay there. I urge you to waste your entire workday on this website. So thank you, everybody.